Brian, you've had time to reflect, after reflecting on this weekend and coming in, what's your thoughts going forward now?
Uh, you know, obviously disappointed in our performance last weekend. Felt like we left a lot of stuff out there. Just didn't execute at a high enough level or a high enough level consistently. And you do that on the road, against a good opponent like that, and then they get exposed in some areas. Bottom line, I think for us is we've got to execute better on first and second down. We put ourselves in too many third and long situations and predictable passing situations against a good active front and a secondary that had been pretty solid all year against the pass. And it's an uphill battle there. And so that's been our kind of our focus across the board, higher level of execution, getting ourselves into more convertible third down situations. It was good to see. I did, when we did get ourselves, and most of them came on fourth down in some of those short yardage situations, felt like we did a good job in those. So executing some big fourth downs to stay on the field and get some points off some of that good field position.
Let me follow up this environment. How much does that play a role? How can you plan for environment? You talked about the win or just that kind of fan base. How much can you plan for that type of situation?
I thought we prepped pretty good for that. I mean, we had over the bye week, we worked crowd noise in every practice. I thought for the most part, our guys. I mean, you're always at a disadvantage if you're having to go on your silent count. I mean, I think at any level when you're having to do that, it makes it really tough on those tackles on the outside. And especially on some of those third downs when they know you're going to throw the ball. But I didn't really honestly feel like the crowd was as much of a factor as it was just our lack of execution. And I think we had a little of adversity early in the game, and our guys, we talked about as an offense having the maturity to, just refocus and go and execute your responsibility with a high level of detail. You don't have to go outside your responsibility individually, right? You got to execute your responsibility and then trust that the guy next to you is going to get his job done. And we took a little bit of while, especially in the first half, to kind of get over that. I felt like we came out of the second half, put two good drives together, to kind of get back in the game, which was promising to see.
We were talking to Jonathan about this yesterday, but Aiden kind of regressed a little bit, showed some signs of what we saw last year. How do you kind of address that and make the corrections and try to avoid that continuing?
Yeah, no, he obviously wasn't his best game, and just wasn't in a rhythm early, and that falls on myself as the offensive coordinator and the play caller. I got to find a way to get him comfortable, with some easy throws. And, unfortunately, we had, I think, the second play, we call one, we got a hitch, we just don't execute it, we drop it. I think we catch that, we get a first down, give them a little bit more confidence that way. But yeah, I got to find some ways to get him some easy throws, build confidence, and then we've got to execute across the board. I think, from protection to Aiden being comfortable in the pocket, negotiating, some pressure and going through his progression, and then being detailed with our routes. I mean, across the board, we've got to execute at a higher level and get the passing game going in the run game as well, so we can not be in so many of those. It's tough on a quarterback. You go and you're having to throw 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s, and you're just at this level. Those are tough situations to consistently convert on.
Do you worry about a quarterback, particularly when he's sacked 14 times through 5? But do you worry about a quarterback losing confidence in an offensive line, and does that affect maybe some of the things that Jonathan said with eye movement and half the field?
Yeah, and that's something you do. I mean, and it's that's one of the challenging parts about playing that position is you take some shots and you get beat, and ultimately, man, you got to trust that group. You got to trust that the protection's going to get done, and it's what we've been trying to drill into him, and talk to him about. But that's something he's got to battle through. And I think there's at times in the game where there was a little bit of lack of trust, and he started to kind of, his eyes started to go down, and he turned into a one and done guy, which you saw a little bit last year. And I thought early in the season, we got away from that, and he was able to get through and find through some of his progression. So that's something that we're working with him on, and drilling all that stuff in practice, and hopefully he can take the next step and show some progress on that this week.
Going to the bye week, Brian, what did you guys, as much as you can share, what did you sort of learn about yourselves? What were some of the takeaways or just sort of findings from that time where you had to review the early part of the season?
No, I think anytime you're going through some of your tendencies of some of the things that the defense would be preparing for and how we could play off some of those tendencies. And then, yeah, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What do we do well? What does our personnel do well? And that's where I was a little bit disappointed in just how some of the play calls worked out and what I maybe didn't get to in the game, to take advantage of some of that stuff, you know. And some of that, I think, you get into the game and we turn the ball over, we throw 2 interceptions, put our defense, back-to-back drives, you put your defense in a challenging situation there, and they're playing really well. And so maybe it makes you a little bit more hesitant to call some of that stuff starting in the second half. So I felt like I didn't get to maybe some of the things that we had gotten to in the bye week. But yeah, I think that was ultimately it. It was like build off what do we do well, build on that, and then some of the weaknesses, how can we fix them, or what do we need to stay away from that way.
UCLA enters first in the league in rush defense. I know you haven't had a 100-yard rusher since the seasonal preview. Sense maybe an opportunity there this week, or maybe a special emphasis on getting the run game going again?
Well, I've been really impressed. I mean, the last couple of weeks, I mean, they seem like they got a new energy. Those guys are flying around. They do a good job of tackling. And I feel like it's almost like looking at a different defense the last couple of weeks. I mean, obviously they've changed the scheme, but the guys are playing with confidence in it. They're playing hard. It's going to be a challenge for us. But for us, always we want to be able to get the run game going and then and mix in the pass and keep them off balance that way. I'm not going to get too much into that, but we got to execute the run game, and we'd hopefully like to get that going.
This week. Nick and Amari, I think Nick had 6 targets, Amari like 3. You get in a game like that with the wind, and maybe sort of factors into what was your hope in terms of getting those 2 involved in that game, and how much did you get to it or not get to it?
Yeah, no, I mean that was down definitely. I think that's always a unique thing. You go into the game and you look through your list of plays, and you feel like, man, I feel like Nick's got a really good opportunity. He's the first in the progression here. I feel like he's got a high chance of getting it, and for whatever reason they take it away. Maybe he wins on the route and we miss the throw. Maybe it's we get beat in protection and we don't have the opportunity to get to it. There's a number of factors that lead to them not getting it, and ultimately that, as the OC, I got to find that's not enough. Those guys are 2 talented players, and we got to get them the ball in space and get them some easy hits that are. And as the offensive coordinator, I got to do a better job of that.
How do you deal with the frustration level? I mean, obviously we saw the thing with Nick kind of going back and forth with Aiden, but how do you deal with the skill level frustration points when
Yeah. No, Nick's,
they don't see what's going on.
Yeah, no, Nick and Nick and I've talked about that. And Nick's a competitive kid. That's what I love about him, man. He's awesome to be around, and he wants to win, just like we all do. And he feels like, hey, I want to do my part to help us do that. And I just think there was a little bit of frustration that way. And we've talked, and I know Coach Smith's talked to him as well about the proper way to go through that. But yeah, Nick's a good player, and we got to find. Bottom line, we got to find ways to get him more involved, and he can help us win football games.
You mentioned problems on first and second down. What were some of the commonalities there?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it just goes to overall execution. I mean, you could get into, targeting in the run game, technique, communication. Back a little slow hitting the hole. Quarterback missing a read. There were so many things that we were just a little bit off on. And when you play a talented group like that on the road, they're going to expose you and take advantage. And then all of a sudden, what should have been a 5-6 yard run, it turns into, 2nd and 10 or a negative play, and or a pass that should have been a high percentage, get back on track type play, and it goes incomplete, or we take a sack. And that was the frustrating part. Calling it Saturday is just we were always behind the sticks, behind it, and then putting ourselves into those challenging 3rd down and longs, and that's tough on a QB. It's tough on those tackles,
The negative plays in the run game, conventional run plays, there's still kind of leaking back on some of those things. Again, is that just different player, different situation each time?
Yeah, I think each play has its own thing, and there's some different things I think we can mix in as far as with scheme wise. I think there were some things that came off the bye. Those guys had a pretty good plan for some of some of our things that we felt like were our strengths, and we wanted to go execute. But we got to continue to change it up, the scheme, and then we've got to ultimately just whatever it's called, go execute it at a high level, and that's where we're falling short.
With Stanton Ramil being injured, you had to reshuffle some things at offensive tackle. How's that coming along? What do you think about
Yeah, no, I think we've been repping the three guys back there, and I think that you get into a deal where we lost Luca, we lost Stanton, two starters that we felt really good about. Um, it's a long season, and you're trying to build depth at those spots, and so Coach Enns felt it's good to kind of rotate those guys through, and make those guys that wasn't their best performance. There's a lot of reps that I know they'd like to have back, a lot of reps that they can learn from. And the plan is, moving forward, man, we're constantly evaluating those guys. There's competition going on through the week, and then kind of make the evaluation at the end of the week as to how we want to approach this game with a rotation or just repping two guys there.
Is those three, or is Raheem Johnson still in that mix? I know he was center earlier.
Yeah, we're mixing Raheem in a little at practice. He just hasn't got. He's still in the mix, I guess, at practice, competing for those spot. He didn't get in there as much on game day, but he's a guy that we'd love to see come. He's got some talent, he's got some ability. We'd love to see him kind of get into the mix there and keep pushing those guys.
Is there a point where you have to kind of go static five up front there, and if that builds a little more consistency?
Yeah, and I've always, doing this for a while, man, I think you really lean on your O-line coach for that. And he's with those guys every day. He's got a good feel for it. And he and I talk on a daily basis about that situation. And right now he's felt like, man, as far as in terms of developing that room and getting guys ready to play and creating that kind of sense of competition, he's felt like he wanted to rotate those guys in, and those guys have earned those reps. And at the end of the day, whoever we put out there, as coaches, players, we got to, we're trusting those guys to go out there and have confidence that they'll get it done.
With Makai Frazier, are you learning something about his toughness? That fourth down play showed some gumption.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, that was, I think that showed signs of maturity for him, understanding the situation of, sometimes that it ain't always going to be perfect. There's going to be an unblocked, secondary guy close to around the line of scrimmage, and he was able to get his pads down and finish that run. That was really cool to see. Yeah, something to build off for sure.
How about Alessio? I mean, he obviously got thrust into it, but then this last drive put some things together, in that moment. I guess, where did you see his development, and how critical is that for a quarterback who had the struggles he had his first two appearances to kind of put something?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, just being around Alessio every day, really have a great deal of respect for the way he works and goes about his process on a weekly basis. And sometimes that's tough as the backup because you're preparing like the starter, but you don't always get in there on game day. And sometimes that, as the season goes on, you start to kind of prepare a little bit less and less. But he's been awesome that way. So it's really rewarding as a coach to see him go out there and come into a situation, I think a really tough situation in the red zone. It's loud, go out and execute and finish that drive for us. And then put together a drive at the end. And you could just, see kind of a little bit of a weight lifted off his shoulders after, the interception he threw earlier in the year. And then just his confidence going up, because I think his future is bright for sure.
As a play caller, red zone, got to have a score. You let him throw in that first play. I mean,
and I didn't even realize it, but actually the play that he threw that was the same play that he threw the interception against Western Michigan on. And I called so we went right back to it. And I didn't realize it at the time, but brought that up to me on the phone after the thing. But it was cool to see him go through, read it correctly, get back to the second read, get us back on track.
You didn't hesitate with him.
No, I got full confidence in Alessio. I mean, because we see it, you're around him every day, and just the way he goes about it, I got full confidence in him to go out and execute everything that we can do offensively.
With Childs, having some things that you corrected this week or recorrected, some past issues and so forth. I mean, how much of that is just taking some shots early in the game that can probably rattle an athlete?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and I think as the play caller, it falls on me to try to take him out of some of those situations, and get him some high percentage touches and, maybe a design QB run to kind of get him into the game. And I think it's tough on a young quarterback when you do get hit early in the game. And that's something that we're constantly harping on. And I think the guys, showing them, hey man, these are the guys at the NFL. That's where those guys make their money, man, is taking a shot in the pocket and then the next play getting up and delivering, a strike, and making some of those, those throws under pressure. And so we've really been challenging him. I think that's just something as a young QB he's got to keep working on.
And one more thing, Nebraska was number one in the country in pass defense coming into the game. They do a lot of how much of a challenge was that for yourself and for Childs also? And what did Nebraska do well that might have made it difficult to have a good game like that?
Yeah, those guys do it. Yeah, they do a good job. They did a nice job, I think, changing up the coverage, disguising the coverage on him. I know that there was some stuff through the first half that he just wasn't seeing quite clean, and they had 2 weeks to prepare, so they had some stuff that maybe we hadn't seen as much of on tape, and that's just part of college football and a good learning opportunity for Aiden. And then they got pressure on the QB. I mean, they put us in predictable passing situations. And then their edge guys, got around the edge and put some pressure on us. And we've got to do a better job. Like I said, I think that pass game, it falls on, everybody out there to execute at a higher level, and not just the QB.
I asked Jonathan about this yesterday, but with Aiden's ability to run, you saw what he did with that touchdown run, the longer one. Is there sometimes moments where he feels like he has to do everything when the run game isn't working, and how do you kind of coach through that?
It's a fine line with an athletic guy like that, because you want him. One point you kind of feel like you're speaking on both sides of your mouth. Hey, get through your progression, find number 2, number 3. Then sometimes he goes 1 and then pulls it and rips off a nice touchdown like that, or a big play. And so it is challenging. And kind of going back at what I talked about earlier was him and really everybody on offense having trust in the man next to them that they're going to get their job done. And we talked about, hey, that starts in practice, and we got to go out and practice, and you got to execute your responsibility at a high level in practice, and that's how you build that trust. And I think as an offense that has been a little bit up and down that way, that's the next step for us in building that maturity, is like going out and practicing, earning that trust to where he can go out and he's trusting that thing fully to where he can maybe get through to that second or third read in the progression.
Wondering about a couple of freshmen. Jace Carizio, is he a guy that's making progress toward being able to help you guys at all? And Bryson, we've seen him travel twice now. Same kind of question, I guess. So where's he at? Could he be somebody that makes his way in the mix?
No, Jace, been injured early in the year, and he's just kind of getting back. We're getting him into the mix. Talented young player. He's got a bright future. And we're trying to kind of slowly get him in the mix. It'll just be how fast he continues to kind of pick up and get, as a young guy, get back in the mix. But he's somebody that we'd love to, get back in there as we kind of progress through the season. And then your other one, Bryson. Oh yeah.
Traveled twice. I think he warmed up with the backs the other day.
Yeah. No, we've got him. He's repping a little bit at receiver, and then we do have him at running back a little bit with Jace being injured. He did a little bit that in high school, and is a guy that again is super talented, and I think that bright future, we can do a lot of different things with him, and just trying to kind of catch him up a little bit in some of the running back stuff, to where you'll probably see him in the next couple weeks.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, man. Take care.